Hello, my name is Elmina Kulasic. I was born in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but because of the 1992-1995 war and genocide, I grew up in the United States. I am and have been in the field of human rights, genocide prevention, and public policy for almost 2 decades now. I'm currently the country director for Remembering Srebrenica in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And this position has further enabled me to work directly with survivors and to enable them to not only share their stories, but to become educators of what it means to survive a war and genocide and how they, as survivors, trying to make a positive change for future generations. On a daily basis, I am in contact with survivors in different organizations. I am trying to understand what are some of the other local issues that survivors communities are facing and how they can not only educate the local community, but the wider community outside of Bosnia, why hatred and othering the other has to be prevented so that a war and genocide does not occur again in Bosnia or anywhere else in the world. I have taken a number of steps to get to where I am today. As a survivor myself, growing up in the United States, I had a number of questions that my parents nor other community members could answer. I was too young to understand what was going on at the beginning of the war when my hometown was attacked and completely demolished. But I understood fear, and I remember every single detail, not only of the attack on my hometown of Kozarac, but also surviving the Ternopolje concentration camp. And the need to reckon with my own past led me down the road to where I am today. In high school, I applied for my first internship with my local congresswoman's office, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky. And during this period, I understood how important local issues are, understanding the local communities, and how we can be part of the overall process of what happens in our local communities, why constituents' issues are important, and how, as a community member, you can reach out to your local representatives and ask them not only for advice, but any help that you need. And just this experience made me think about what I wanted to major in at university. And it's one of the reasons why I decided to study political science. During my undergraduate studies, I applied for 2 additional internships, one with then Senator Barack Obama and the other with Senator Richard Durbin. This experience was the next step in terms of my experience with my local congresswoman. There, I really understood what local policy means, and how it directly impacts different communities, and how different communities can actually have their voices heard if they contact their local senators, whether that is an issue related to education or healthcare. And it was after this experience, and it was actually after President Obama won his election, that I applied to and moved to Washington, D.C. I became the executive director for Advisory Council for Bosnia, a local NGO advocating on behalf of Bosnian Americans. There, I worked directly with policymakers, Congress members, and senators, and their staff members. And I had firsthand experience understanding the importance of reaching out to policymakers, understanding where their policy recommendations come from and how they impact not only the United States, but the role that the United States has in the international community. I also understood the importance of different resolutions passed and how laws are changed, and also why local communities are important, not only because they are a voting bloc, but because they are the ones that make up the community and how the community functions. And all of these steps have been very useful in terms of my master's degree. I have a master's degree in public policy and a second master's degree in human rights and democracy. And these two degrees enabled me to return back to Bosnia. In one aspect, they enabled me to reckon with my own personal past, to go back to my hometown and to revisit the sites of atrocities. And on the other hand, they enabled me to understand not only what the role of Bosnia is today as an aspiring country to join the EU and NATO, but also the lessons that can be learned from Bosnia, the Srebrenica genocide, Prijedor, Visegrad, Mostar, and all of the other cities that have been affected by the war. They have also provided me with the tools and the language to communicate how I understood policy, how I understood human rights, how I understood the importance of genocide, education and prevention, and how I could approach other survivors and work with them directly. And because of my work with survivors directly, listening to their testimonies, providing them with a platform to share their stories, it has enabled me to work with Remembering Srebrenica UK. And there are a number of challenges. One is really making sure that this road of human rights, public policy, genocide, and atrocities is a road that I or anyone else wants to take. The other challenge is really becoming an active listener, not only by listening to the local communities, but also listening to policymakers and understanding where both sectors come from and how a feasible solution or a recommendation can be brought to the forefront to have the local community and stakeholders understand where the policymakers are coming from, but also to have the policymakers understand where the local community comes from and how the laws and any changes that will affect the local communities affect everything else around them. So the other challenge is really gaining trust, whether you work with survivors of genocide or just local community members that want to improve their local communities. Trust is very important because it will enable you as an individual to not only work on the passion and the passionate issues that you would like to work on, but also to have others support your cause, support your ideas, and have you be part of their team. And the other challenges is if you work in the NGO sector where you have to apply for funding for different projects, the degrees that you receive and the experience that you have in the local communities will provide you with the arguments why a project proposal is of imperative importance for an issue to not only be resolved or affected with the outcome of your project, but also how it can be an example of what other communities can learn from each other. And my advice to anyone really interested in this field is to be passionate, to look at every individual as a potential partner, as someone that is a change maker, and to never ever allow anyone to be called the other or be dehumanized, because the first step when it comes to a potential war or genocide is if we as individuals allow others to be dehumanized and called the other. And we have to be louder than some of the policymakers. And we have to be louder simply because they need to hear us and they need to listen to us. So anyone thinking of going down the road, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that you will be the next change maker that the world needs. Thank you.